him, bless him. This is the day that the Lord has made. The Bible says, let us rejoice and be glad in it. I pray that today you are having a phenomenal day. Today is Tuesday. What can happen on Tuesday when we get involved with what Yahshua is saying? You know, I say to God be the glory. Because yesterday we went up into the mountains and we took the trail, myself and Prophetess Alexis. And as we were walking up higher and higher and reaching higher depth and higher heights, we kept on talking to Yahshua, decreeing over every family, every connection that he has placed in our lives, from near and far. Maybe you might not be in the United States right now. Maybe you might be all the way in another country. But to God be the glory, whether we are overseas or in the United States. Let me say, God is sending a word to his people. Tonight, somebody say tonight, where God, he keeps speaking that word, dealing with the shattered pieces of our lives. And he said earlier, as we was in worship, that not one piece was lost. You know how you can break a cup or break a dish and pieces of gold and be scattered. And sometimes you can't find that scattered piece. But let me say, how many realize that God is in charge of every piece that was scattered? He keeps speaking that he's rebuilding the scattered pieces. In Luke 4, and I'm reading out the King James Version, starting at the 18th verse. And as I was coming down, Yahshua said, now you shall run. Woo! And I looked at Prophet, I said, now he said, we shall run. What is getting ready to happen? Are you preparing yourself for the next dimension that is coming in your life? Are you preparing your mindset for the next thing that God is preparing you for?
Recording in progress.
Are you telling God, Lord, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm ready? Are you still trying to dictate and find out what he's got going on? Because believe me, showing up as the devil is acting now, let me tell you, God is doing a greater performance. Woo, my God. He's doing a greater performance. Woo, I tell you, he is awesome. So if you had Luke 4 opening up, now is the time we can run. Luke 4:18. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, those shattered pieces, to preach deliverance to the captive, and the recovery of the sight to the blind. Too long we've been too blindsided. Too long we have sat in the back. And God has said, I'm taking off the dark shades. Come on here. The light is getting ready to gleam in your face. But can I read that again? The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. How many know when God has his hand on you, not a devil in hell can touch it. Not a devil in hell can block it. Only thing you do when you fight against God's people, what you do is cause God to show up even quicker. And when he shows up, he's powerful, he's mighty, and he lets you know your fight was never against flesh and blood. It was against principalities and spirits and wickedness in high places. You were never fighting my people. You were fighting those spirits that's been trying to keep you bound. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and the recovery of the sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, and to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. And what I like about this prophet Harrison, in the 20th verse, watch this. And he closed the book. Wait, y'all. He said what he had to say in the synagogue. He only went in the synagogue to set it straight. And he said, and he closed the book. And he gave it again to the minister. And sat down. Woo. You know when God says what he's going to say, he shuts it down. Isn't that something? How he'll shut it down after he done said what he's going to say. Now that part right there, usually when your parents are quiet, you get nervous. You be like, man, I'm really in trouble. I'm going to get a whooping. I'm going to get punished. You are really in anticipation. I don't know what's getting ready to happen. I see that look. Because I can imagine he had that stern look on his face. He was letting them know, this is my purpose for being here. And he said, and he closed the book and gave it again to the minister and sat down. And all of the eyes that were in the synagogue fastened on him. And he began to say unto them, this day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears. No ifs and buts about it. You heard me. You heard, you know what they say, you heard what Daddy said, you heard what Mama said, you heard what Yeshua said. Everything that I've just spoken, say no more. Woo, my God. He was like, say no more. Right? He said, I done said what I needed to say. And it's an awesome thing when God gives us in a position to release a word. And we say what we say, and it's over. There's no feeding into it. There's no adding to it. There's no subtraction. It is what it is. All the ingredients are in the house. Woo, my God. And he said, I'm giving it back to you. Now what you going to do with it? Because now y'all responsible for everything you just heard. For everything that I just said out of my mouth. You just realize that now you are responsible for what he has said unto the church. That is you. Not a building. Not a temple. Not a synagogue. You are the church. He said we are a city. When I was looking down on the mountain, I reached out to my bishop sister. I said, I see a city sitting on a hill that we cannot be here. We cannot be here because he's putting us in the spotlight. He said, whatever I said about you and for you, this is a year. You've been pondering too long with this. You've been going around trying to figure it out. Trying to dissect it, trying to put the puzzle pieces together. He said, I got this. You don't have to help me. I'm helping you. You don't need to help me. I'm helping you. But you must be about doing his business. You must be in place in this season. In this season, you must be in place. So I thank God for just exposing Satan in every territory that he has been hiding. Every hidden place, every dark place, God is revealing. God is not stopping. Sometimes God will just sit back and let the devil unravel his own self. Isn't that something? Satan to get the raveling and talk himself right in an exposure. Like that little baby say, forget-o. There is a God. Woo, Yeshua. I don't know about you, but I thank him for speaking to us about the secret places. And then I want to go, before I show you these videos, let's go to Numbers. Numbers 10:35. Jump over here real quick. There's a reason why we're setting this up. God never leaves himself without a witness. Never. Whatever dead issues you've been dealing with too long, you better ask yourself, have I stayed too long dealing with the wrong issues? Come on here. Y'all, I was saying this to the leader the other day. Y'all, that's the wrong fight. We got to stay in the battle where God has placed us. You're much needed. In the 35th verse of Numbers 10. And it came to pass that when the ark set forth, that Moses said, I'm telling y'all, them shattered pieces are being found. They're being put back together. They're going back to the potter's wheel. And it came to pass that when the ark set forth, that Moses said, rise up, Lord, and let thine enemy be scattered. And let them that hate thee flee before thee. And when it rested, he said, return, O Lord, unto the many thousands of Israel. He said, Lord, rise up. You see what's going on. Let thy enemies be scattered. Have y'all ever told God that? Lord, they ain't my, he said, let your enemies. So that means God is taking that personal because you fooling with his. So he says, you have no longer been an enemy to the human nature. You are an enemy to me. Anytime that we go against God's will, anytime that we denounce him by not acknowledging what he's saying to us, we have become an enemy. Woo. That's a dangerous thing, prophets. That's a dangerous thing. To walk in our own thoughts. We have now become an enemy to God. He said, and it came to pass that when the ark set forth, the ark was getting ready to be put in place. So he needed to make sure that nothing was going to try to stop it. Nothing was going to be able to get in the way. He said, Lord, let thy enemies be scattered. Now y'all know, when God starts scattering the enemies, what happens? They come out like, you didn't have people that have a festation of roaches or bugs. And the minute the light goes off, what happens? They come out. They scatter everywhere. And then by the time you turn on the light, they're all on the walls, the ceiling, everywhere, on the bed, the dresser. But the minute that the light come on, you notice they run looking for hiding places. See, and that's when I thought about when he took me to that scripture with that lunatic spirit. He came up to him and he said, what is your name? And he said, my name is Legion. Prophet, there is no limitation on legion. That is many. Can you imagine? This young man was carrying that many demons inside of him. That it was infested. God help me. He was infested with demons. He was tormenting himself. He was mutilating, self-mutilating his body. He was out in the wilderness. Nobody wanted to deal with him. They was okay as long as he was in conflict with his torture. They didn't say a word. Many. I wonder if we went into these personal places in every White House, Congress House, every house. Legions. That means prophetess, Pastor Stephen Evangelist Hughes, and apostles and bishop. That means that thing sat there and kept on reproducing after its own kind. Reproducing after its own kind. Because when you don't want to deal with that demon, when you don't want to face them obstacles, that demon keeps festering up and up and up, and it's building. Ooh. Just running everywhere. But this demon was so bold that they became so strong because nobody dealt with them. The rabbis, the priests, nobody. They stayed away. But in the midst of it, here comes Yahshua, the Messiah. That demon recognized Messiah. Why have you come to torture us before time? Till it was a violent deliverance. Till when they got in the swine, what happened? They were violent. They got violent. They thought they were going to be able to go pursue somewhere else. And God said, no, I'm going to drown you because of what is going on. And what happened? When they came back, prophets, they heard the word that deliverance had taken place. Now they want to show up with expectation and see how that happened. Speculation. How you get out of that? How you get delivered? How you get that house? How you get that business, prophet? How you get that car? They want to show up now that they're looking at you and God is raising you up. And when he went back, he went and showed them that surely there has to be a God. And I could imagine. Could you imagine when you got infection in your body or something a lesion is growing on your body or even what they call that bull. And when those are growing on you are feeling miserable. You're not feeling like yourself. When you got infection in your body is saying, yeah, okay. Can you imagine? He said, my name is Legion, many. And it didn't give an account of how many. It didn't even identify each name. It's too many of us to call each other out. Woo! It's too many of us to call each other out. Woo! Lord. He says, Lord, rise. Let your enemies be scattered. And we thank God for tonight. So what? You're going to understand now why I'm going this route, why God is taking me this route, because it's vital that we hear. Woo. That it's time that we can no longer hide in the desert. No longer can we overlook a situation. No longer can we allow Satan to even come in our presence. You got to identify with what spirit you're dealing with. You got to deal with that thing immediately, because God does not want it to fester. Does not want it to grow. Watch this video. But when they don't deal with it, this is what happens. Watch. I need you to take notes, pay attention, because it's vital that we are to teach our people. It is now time to be an effective leader in the land of the living, in the kingdom of God. Where you think God is building his kingdom? He's building it around his people. He's going after those that will obey him, that will not be afraid, that will not compromise, that will not be bought out. He's dealing with us. Watch this.
Mr. Berry, Chapter 18 of the Project 2025 Manifesto is about the Department of Labor. And you are the author of that chapter, correct?
Lead author, yes. There's others too.
Yes, you are. I believe the American public should know exactly how you and the Republican majority that invited you to testify today want to sabotage the EEOC, rewrite the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and push all of us back to an era of Jim Crow racism. I'm shocked that my colleague across the aisle was in disbelief at our characterizations and assertions of racism and discrimination when even former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said the Republican side of the aisle looked like the most restrictive country club in America. We all know that Make America Great Again is about making America white only again.
I also want to look at an alternative plan for your agency. Now, this is Project 2025, which is Donald Trump's anti-environmental agenda. And I want to just note some of the main features of Project 2025. It includes shredding pollution regulations, gutting clean energy programs, repealing the Inflation Reduction Act, President Biden's climate law, which we know is landmark, and of course, empowering corporate polluters. Now, we know that Donald Trump's Project 2025 destroys the EPA. He'll let corporations dump more toxins into our air and water like he did the last time he was president. We know that he will empower corporate polluters and fill the EPA with hand-picked extremists rather than actual climate experts. And he will destroy the progress that President Biden has fought for. Now, he is promising to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. And let's be clear, repealing the bill doesn't just mean reversing the historic progress that we have made. It means threatening jobs and businesses all over the country. Over 1,000 projects already are underway, deploying hydrogen, hydropower, wind, batteries, solar energy, which will all make us more green and independent and really leading us to a greener future. That's also hundreds of thousands of jobs. And we know why he's pushing this dangerous agenda.
In some places in our country, the District of Columbia included, they allowed non-citizens to vote in local elections. This legislation corrects this trend for elections on the federal level, requiring states to obtain proof of United States citizenship and identity before votes are cast. Americans' faith in our national elections has declined precipitously over the last 2 election cycles. To restore that faith, we must work to protect American voters and the integrity of those very elections.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about Project 2025 lately, the Republican plan to dismantle the government, get revenge on their political adversaries, weaponize the White House, and install Trump as a dictator. The former president recently made a laughable attempt to try to distance himself from its extremism, and what do you know? Now Project 2025 is right here on the House floor, because it's what Republicans actually believe. That's what this SAVE Act is about. It is a voter suppression bill that lays the groundwork for them to undermine the next election so they can justify another January 6th style attempt to seize power, even if they lose.
Mr. Berry, you're the co-author of Project 2025, the labor section, am I correct?
The lead author on that section, correct.
Go down this list.
I want to get some facts out. There's been so much conversation about who's for working families and what we're going to do for the working class. I just want to get some facts out. In that report, you call for the repeal of Davis-Bacon and say that Congress should enact a law that makes it illegal to pay prevailing wage for union employees. Is that correct?
I appreciate the chance to correct the record. That is actually not correct. The The draft, the chapter expresses no view. There is an alternative view, not attributable.
So you don't think there should be a repeal of Davis-Bacon?
The chapter does not take a position.
Do you have a view of whether there should be a repeal?
Honestly, I think it's complicated, and I don't.
Okay.
I don't
Do you?
know.
In the chapter, it says that you should end project labor agreements and project labor requirements. Is that correct?
Same issue, Congressman.
Yeah. You don't agree with that, or you say that the report doesn't call for that?
The chapter does not speak to the issue directly. There's a dissent that does. I don't take a position.
What about the rescinding of regulation prohibiting the discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, and sex characteristics? Do you believe that we should be repealing any regulations to prevent discrimination on that?
I'm blanking on exactly which regs we're talking about, but yes, I support what is in there on those issues, yes.
Mr. Wray, today I want to focus on the role of the FBI and the need for the Bureau to remain politically neutral and independent. The FBI cannot and should not be subject to the whims of any president. The majority apparently doesn't think that the FBI needs to be politically neutral and independent. They want an FBI subordinate to the president, not accountable to the American people. That is one part of a larger plan to undermine our democracy, to remove the checks and balances that have protected us, and ultimately to subvert our freedoms. That agenda, promulgated by the former president, his loyalists, and their MAGA allies, is called Project 2025. It is publicly available online. I encourage everyone who's watching this to Google it. It includes plans to undermine every part of our government, including the FBI. Trump's Project 2025 agenda says that the director of the FBI must not be independent of politics, but instead must do whatever the president orders. Under Trump's Project 2025, Trump loyalists would undermine the non-political and independent structure of the FBI. Project 2025 openly calls on the next conservative administration to support, quote, a vast expansion of the number of political appointees in every office across the DOJ, especially the FBI. And so, Mr. Wray, given your extensive experience as a law enforcement professional at DOJ across multiple Republican and Democratic administrations, why do you think it's important that the FBI maintain political independence from the president?
I think the FBI is and needs to stay independent, and that means protecting the American people without fear or favor, upholding the Constitution and the rule of law, and it means following the facts wherever they lead, no matter who likes it. And I add that last part because the essence of independence and objectivity is not that an investigation is going to always yield the result you want. Our independence and objectivity can't only be respected when you like the outcome. That's the very essence of objectivity. Sometimes you're going to like the result, sometimes you're not going to like the result. And that applies to everyone, including us. Any number of times we're disappointed and frustrated by the results of our investigations. But the alternative is an erosion of the rule of law, where the only thing that distinguishes one investigation from another is power. And that's what you see in some of authoritarian countries around the world. So I'm not familiar with this particular
No, I didn't ask you to
Project
comment on that.
2025 thing. I don't
know
know anything about it, but what I can tell you is, from my perspective, the FBI needs to be functioning as independent. Doesn't mean it's not part of the executive branch. It doesn't mean the FBI director doesn't serve at the pleasure of the president, but it does mean that the way we do our work
has to be objective.
Has to be independent.
Yeah.
Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. You know, although the subject matter of today's hearing is to be expected, it certainly makes it no less offensive or frightening. My Republican colleagues very often like to quote Dr. King, I don't know, maybe for some faux civil rights credibility or to pervert his words to suit your extremist needs, while working actively to undermine his legislative legacy. On the first page of Chapter 18, Project 2025 complains about how the Biden administration has been fighting for racial equity. On the next page, it calls for eliminating data collection on race and ethnicity in employment. On the page after that, it calls for rescinding an executive order signed in 1965 that prohibits discrimination in hiring by contractors. Mr. Berry, do these terrible ideas sound familiar?
They're great ideas.
These terrible ideas sound familiar? Of course they do. You came up with them. Mr. Berry, I find it shameful to advance a vision attacking the very policies and agencies that have helped Black Americans secure jobs, earn a living, and provide for our families. This Project 2025 plan is policy violence, plain and simple. Its authors have placed such a large target on the EOC because of the incredible work the EOC is doing today. Last year alone, the agency filed more than 27,000 charges of race-based discrimination. These workers and their families have a pathway to justice, accountability, and healing because of the policies and regulations that Project 2025 is trying to get rid of. Ms. Wiley, how would workers be harmed by Project 2025's commitment to undermining crucial protections that are enforced by EOC and other federal agencies?
Well, essentially, it guts the ability to both be able to have the rights and have enforcement and protection of the rights that we already have, and we've been seeing improvements and advancements when we have been enforcing them. And I'm also deeply concerned with any suggestion that we should not be collecting data or that labor rights, the rights to organize, which has been so important for workers across race, including white men, to ensure that they're getting fair wages and safe working conditions. All of these are actually in that chapter, and they threaten our workplaces for people who are white, for people of color, for people of all backgrounds in this country. And I think that's why we all need to be concerned, because it really is about all of us.
That's right. They threaten our workplaces for every person who calls this country home. EOC offers essential protections that create workplaces where all of us can thrive, but Project 2025 aspires to be the realization of a decades-long crusade by Republicans to strip away this key pillar of the Civil Rights Act. As a founding member of the Stop Project 2025 Task Force, I look forward to showing and telling the American people exactly who you are, Mr. Berry, along with your extremist friends. I urge my colleagues to join me in building the inclusive world we know to be possible, one in which everyone, is there something funny?
No.
I didn't think so. Nothing funny about this. And in honor of my departed mother and for my 15-year-old daughter, I will do everything possible to stop you from building the world that you were hell-bent on doing. I urge my colleagues to join me in building the inclusive world we know to be possible, one in which everyone can show up to work free from discrimination. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Thank you, Administrator, for being here. I appreciate your service. You're obviously helping to implement the biggest climate bill in history, which we passed under President Biden. My district includes the Port of Long Beach. I'm the former mayor of Long Beach. We know that the port itself, you were just in the Port of Los Angeles, I think, our neighbor, a huge economic engine for the country. We're fighting to electrify the Port of Long Beach right now under the $3 billion EPA Clean Port program. I wrote to you last week. You responded. We're very grateful to your response and the team, and so we're excited about that opportunity. But I want to turn also on this issue, broader issue of environmental justice. I want to just quickly highlight a case where polluters are getting a pass and residents in my community, the northern part of my district, are feeling the impact. In Vernon, California, small city in southeast Los Angeles, Exide Technologies spent decades recycling batteries and dumping lead and toxins into the air. This includes soil and water, which has now seeped through. Now, the company poisoned surrounding communities in southeast LA, where people suffer from cancer, asthma, learning disabilities, and dangerous levels of lead in their blood. Now, the Obama administration forced Exide to make commitments to fix and fund the cleanup. But in 2020, Trump's EPA and Department of Justice abandoned those responsibilities and approved a bankruptcy plan that let Exide essentially walk away from the cleanup. This is not acceptable to me and certainly not to the communities that I represent. Now, Administrator, one of my first acts when I came to Congress was to lead the call for a federal Superfund designation, along with Senator Padilla. This will secure, of course, federal funds to clean the site that is desperately needed to provide this community true justice. I've been glad that this process has moved forward, and in fact, just recently, we passed a major milestone. Last week, the EPA site inspection report showed the site is eligible for a Superfund listing based on the levels of groundwater contamination. So I want to thank your team for partnering with us there, and I just want to formally ask you to once again just continue to commit to really push for this issue as we move forward to that Superfund designation.
Absolutely. You have my commitment on that.
Donald Trump met with big oil executives to promise to carry out their policy agenda in exchange for $1 billion in campaign contributions, which oversight Democrats are actually investigating. And if that wasn't enough, he promised he would pay back his big oil donors with tax cuts for the rich. And as we know, worst of all, his agenda will be enabled by an extremist Supreme Court that Donald Trump himself appointed. Now, Administrator, I know you can't address a candidate's policy platform. I know that's not why you're here. So instead, I want you to just please explain how important it is that the agency continues to implement the Inflation Reduction Act and the climate gains that we've already achieved.
Well, listen, I'll say this. One program in the Inflation Reduction Act is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. That Congress allotted us $27 billion. We designed a program in consultation with the financial sector, every aspect of the financial sector. We believe that we can pull hundreds of billions of dollars off the sidelines to make homes more energy efficient, to build manufacturing capacity in this country, to create jobs. It's important for me to say that these are not just happening in blue states. They're happening in red states. They're happening in Alabama and Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. And so this really does prove that clean energy has a role in the new economy and is creating hundreds of thousands of jobs all across this country. But more important, it's making us secure because we're bringing the manufacturing back domestically. Rolling back these types of provisions, eliminating career scientists at EPA, it's just going to ruin the economy and it's going to ruin the progress that we're making.
I yield back.
Mr. Shapiro, thank you for joining us today. I think it is important that you're here as one of the leading conservative voices in the country. And the country has, in the last couple weeks, talked a lot about and Googled Project 2025. It's one of the most Googled search terms right now. And you're not going to get any censorship from me. So I just wanted to know, from your perspective, I think it would help us understand, on just like a scale of 0 to 100%, how much do you support Project 2025?
I think, like President Trump, I haven't looked all that deeply at Project 2025, but it seems that Democrats on this committee, sort of like Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, if they say Project 2025 enough, their presidential candidate becomes alive again.
And so, well, let's just talk about pieces of it, and I guess you can tell me if you support it. You probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency?
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely?
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents would be proud. Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who's in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and they can do so for hundreds of millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well, except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to and then stay and work and put food on our table?
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
How about banning the abortion pill? That's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state-by-state issue on a personal level.
I'm just asking you.
Sure, I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
Banning same-sex marriage, what about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I am perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just you to me, is it a sin or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Okay. And how about cutting Social Security? Do you support that part of 2025?
I'm not sure what Project 2025's position on Social Security is. I'm in favor of the restructuring of Social Security along the lines of privatization and lowering and increasing the retirement age, because you, as well as every other congressperson, knows Social Security is going to go bankrupt, and yet everyone seems to have an interest in lying about it for the next decade and a half until we have to take austerity measures or radically increase inflation or taxes.
And bans against books about slavery. Do you support that part about?
Why would I possibly be in favor of bans about books about slavery? That would be absolutely ridiculous. What I am in favor of is the idea that school libraries should be able to make decisions along the lines of what exactly is appropriate for, say, a 7th grader and whether they ought to be treated to cartoons and genderqueer. That's not quite the same thing.
And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew,
sure
that's true.
There's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation. But the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your, I'm sure it's very hard to restrain yourself. Mr. Chairman, I just want to shift to Alvin Bragg. He was supposed to be here this week, and he's not coming. And Hunter Biden was supposed to testify. Now he's not testifying. We were supposed to have votes on articles of impeachment, and we didn't. And again, we're just wondering, you guys write great press releases, but the payoff seems to never come. And so I guess we will keep waiting, and we'll do hearings like this. And finally, Chairman, you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater, and that's a restriction on speech, as you have recognized before. But you can yell theater in a crowded fire, and you all can continue to do that all you want, and we'll just waste the American people's time.
The gentleman's time has expired, and I remind him of the first rule of holes. When you're in one, stop digging.
Just to be clear, you would repeal any regulations that prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, and sex characteristics.
The position is that Bostock should be read properly narrowly and not extended to the biological areas like bathrooms that we've been discussing today.
But that's not what the report says. The report says basically you don't want any regulations that prevent discrimination against gay people and people based on sexual orientation or gender identity. I mean, that's what you call for in the report.
No, the chapter accepts Bostock according to its terms, but resists its extension to areas where it doesn't apply.
I'm just quoting directly. It says, rescind regulations prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, and sex characteristics. I mean, do you stand by that statement?
I stand by what it says in the chapter, yes.
So just to be clear, I mean, that basically means you don't believe that we need to have laws to protect people from discrimination. If someone is gay or someone is transgender, you think that there should not be laws to protect them. Let me go on to one other issue in this report. You say that we need to be scheduling civil employees as F-scheduled employees, which means that the president would have the authority to fire about 50,000 civilian employees if she or he wants to. Is that correct?
Someone else said responsibility. I do support that as a policy matter, that ultimately the president and people accountable to the president should be the ones setting our executive branch policy.
So, I mean, under this scenario, if for example, if President Trump returns to office, he would be able to fire about 50,000 people who are currently civil servants and bring in people who are more consistent with his ideology, and you're recommending this as a policy, correct?
Having more political accountability is a very good thing.
I just want to know, I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm saying for a fact, so you support the idea that Donald Trump could come in, hypothetically, if he wins the election, fire 50,000 civil employees and replace them with people who support his ideology?
I support the Schedule F idea, yes.
And that means that if he wants to take civil servants from the Justice Department, State Department, from the Department of Homeland Security, and he says they aren't sufficiently for MAGA. I want to fire these folks, 50,000 of them, and replace them with people more aligned with MAGA, he would have the ability to do that. Currently, there are only 4,000 political appointees. You want him to have the authority, if he wins the election, to have 50,000 people replaced, correct?
It's a lesser civil service regime. It's not the same as political appointees, but political policy responsiveness is appropriate when it comes to any employee who touches on public policy, which the left class would.
I'm directionally correct. I mean, I think the American people should decide whether they want that or not. You're basically saying he should have the ability to fire up to 50,000 people if they're not doing what his ideology is, and replace them with people more consistent with his ideology, and reclassify these folks as Schedule F, correct?
100%.
Thank you.
First off, on Project 2025, this is the work of a think tank. Now, here's a news flash for everyone. There are think tanks in Washington, D.C. There are a lot of them. There are right-leaning think tanks. There are left-leaning think tanks. In fact, one of the more frightening left-leaning think tanks is Center for American Progress. And the head of the Center for American Progress is now ensconced in the White House as a domestic policy advisor to the Biden administration. So don't pretend that you don't have your think tanks on the left, just as think tanks on the right exist, and their purpose is to provide information to legislators, House members, and senators, and sometimes to inform legislation.
The gentleman raised the issue of Project 2025 as somehow it's the product of some distant think tank. I would like to ask unanimous consent to insert into the record a list of all the former Trump administration officials who are architects of this atrocious document. I would also like to point out for the record that the key witness in the House Administration Committee on this horrific voter suppression bill is one of the co-architects of Project 2025. And the gentleman, tried to, to take a swipe at the Center for American Progress. I think they actually have good ideas. But the Center for American Progress doesn't want to install Joe Biden as a dictator, unlike what Project 2025 wants to do with regard to Trump. And Madam Speaker, we know that there's a lot that we can do when you have competent leadership in control. Look at the last Congress when the Democrats were in charge. We invested to rebuild our neglected infrastructure, airports, roads, bridges, and ports in your communities. Many of my Republican friends voted against it, but they take bows and issue press releases when they get the money and a project is happening in their district. We brought manufacturing back to the United States, passing the CHIPS and Science Act to drive innovation and create good-paying jobs. We made the largest investment in climate, protecting our water and our air. We strengthened our supply chains and set up new programs to support minority businesses. We ensured that our veterans get health care and that they earn during their service.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in opposition to the rule and in strong support of the Women's Health Protection Act. The Women's Health Protection Act would protect the right to abortion nationwide. It would restore the intensely personal freedom for pregnant people to make decisions about their own bodies. That is the complete opposite of Trump's Project 2025, extremist Republicans' agenda for their policies that they want to advance. Trump's Project 2025 outlines a whole-of-government approach to eliminate the right to abortion. It restricts access to contraception. It calls for the federal government to stop enforcing laws that require hospitals to provide emergency care to pregnant people in need of an abortion. And let me just be clear, Mr. Speaker, this fight is about our fundamental freedoms, the freedom to make choices about our own bodies, our own health, our own economic future. And I'm standing here as one of the 1 in 4 women in America who has had an abortion myself. I can tell you that these decisions are intensely personal. We do not need an extreme Republican Party trying to control our freedoms. In my case, I had already experienced a very difficult pregnancy, and my daughter was born prematurely at 26 and a half weeks. She was actually just 1 pound, 14 ounces. She was about the size of my hand. She weighed about the same as a small squash, and she literally almost did not survive. And my doctors told me that if I were to have another pregnancy, it would be extremely high risk, both for me and for the child. And so I took my daily contraceptive pill that Republicans are trying to get rid of for Americans across this country so that I could protect my health and the health of any future pregnancies. And in fact, what happened was I got pregnant anyway, and my doctor said, you really should have an abortion. I made that decision with my doctor, with my family. Why should anyone else be a part of that decision? And it was a hard one for me, but for every person, it should be their choice. Donald Trump has bragged that he did a, quote, great job getting rid of Roe v. Wade. Well, thanks, Donald Trump. Thanks to Donald Trump, 1 in 3 women in this country of childbearing age now live in a state with an abortion ban. Thanks to Republicans, a woman who was 20 weeks pregnant when her water broke was told by doctors that the pregnancy was not viable, but still she was not provided the fundamental freedom to do what she needed to do for her health. She was forced to go through the pain of delivering a stillborn child. Democrats have a completely different vision, and it is in the Women's Health Protection Act. That is to defend and protect your fundamental freedoms. Vote no on this motion. I yield back.
Now, y'all heard a lot of information. And the more that you understand, the more that you realize what's at stake. And for the sake of all, I can't understand where my brothers are, my black brothers, why we are supporting Trump. I don't understand that. But I want you to write these down because in a meeting today, it was called the Recommended Economic Policy Reform. Because I said, as long as we're pushing and we're saying, look, we're standing behind you, we still have to hold accountability to the people that we're placing in position, because every time that they get in trouble, who has to come and save them? We do. So now it's time out, especially the black women. We are the ones that really push. But every time that they have gotten in trouble and got in the position, we always got to come and be the same. Okay, so goal number 1. These are we got 10 goals that we need to make sure that are put in place in the 90 days that President Kamala Harris is in position. We got to put a demand. We can no longer just put our vote out there and hold no accountability to our vote. You must put a demand. You know, my dad was in politics, and he used to say that all the time. Don't just give what's rightfully yours away. Put a demand on our congressmen. And I'm going to tell y'all that Project 2025, that was supposed to be held up until he got in office, well, guess what? They brought it to the congregation. They brought it to the Congress floor today. So they're seriously trying to get this done. Monday they brought to the floor that we need to take all the guns from the thugs. Well, who are you saying are the thugs? Black people. So they are saying we are willing to take away their weapons and trying to say they're thugs. Okay, let's pay attention. This ain't the time. I keep telling leaders, this is not the time to go to sleep. This ain't the time to say, oh, it don't matter. This is going to happen anyway. No, we have to take accountability with responsibility. So this is what it's called, the Recommended Economic Policy Reforms. Working with some attorneys that came up with this, I said, we are on it. This is what we have to demand. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm always talking to my congressman because I need to know, my senator, what are y'all doing? Make it make sense. Okay, goal number 1, to raise the federal minimum wage at least $15 an hour. Well, we already know that they want to raise it with Biden and as well as Kamala. Trump is not willing to raise the minimum wage. This minimum wage has been here for life. People cannot survive off of what they're making today. Not with one job. We need to raise it that people are able to enjoy their families and still go to work and have time for their families. Okay? Goal number 2, protect and enforce the AFFH. And if y'all don't know what that means, affirmative furthering fair housing. So we need to protect and enforce the AFFH rule to protect blacks from housing discrimination. Because all of these things that you hear in Project 2025, who do you think is going to hurt? Better wake up. Goal number 3, to create an economic opportunity zone in black neighborhoods to rebuild the black economic base. We need to start building our neighborhoods back up. This is the point, y'all. Now we got to stop going into their stores, going after their out of their vendors and spending all our money, and we need to start rebuilding our own communities. But too many of us are going outside and not willing to work with each other. So that's why I say even people of color come into the business with a spirit of perfection. I cannot stand when we come in business and we do it in half-wheel. No, you got to put everything in it. You got to study your business. You got to know the ins and outs of your business. You got to know who to deal with, when to deal, and you got to know when is the right time. Only you should be able to understand your vision about your business. And it's time that we rebuild. And as long as we have money going outside of our communities, we cannot rebuild it. He says in Psalms 33, starting at the 11th verse, and the counsel of the Lord standeth forever, and the thoughts of his hearts to all generations. Blessed is the nation who God is the Lord. And y'all hear what I'm saying? Blessed is the nation whom God is the Lord, and the people whom he has chosen for his own inheritance. The Lord looketh from heaven, and he beholdeth all the sons of men. From the place of his inhabitation, he looketh upon all the inhabitants of the earth. We are to be the head and not the tail. Number 4, create programs and incentives to produce affordable housing. What do we have now? We have housing that are being built. And y'all do realize that when COVID hit, this is when the devil did some of his dirty deeds. And when COVID hit and we were all in the house trying to stay safe, guess what? The stock market made white people rich that are in business and Asians. Very small percentage of blacks. You better hear what I'm saying. Because we have been left behind too long. And the reason why we don't like to be caught up, because we don't want to read, we don't want to pay attention. We be like, oh, that don't matter to me. Yes, it matters. We are tired of being left behind. Did you hear what he said? They're putting all these toxics into our neighborhoods. to where it can flow in our water, flow in our where our foods is being produced and everything. It's killing us. You got to understand, y'all, how many times is God going? I can imagine when he said to the disciples, how long? It's time that we take our rightful place and not be afraid, not be intimidated. Woo, God. Woo. Pandemic. They got rich, y'all. But what happened? Middle class went out the door. It's between the poor and the rich now. Pay attention. Goal number 5. I hope you guys are writing these goals down. These are 10 vital, important goals that we need her to produce in the first 90 days. We're not playing. We're not sitting back and say, oh, well, no. That's what's wrong. Today we have allowed this thing to just go on and on. I just said earlier, what is his name? He said legion or many. And as long as you keep allowing Satan to have his way, he filters up more and more and gets buffed up. Goal number 5, partner with schools. Prophets know I'm working with that because we're working with the National Department of Education trying to get things set up with that. We're having meetings. We're in that meeting trying to find out how we can educate our people. Because you heard what they said, they want to take the books out of the school, and they're lying and say, well, why do we want to do that? We don't want slavery not to be taught. That's a lie. Because as long as they can keep their children from knowing the truth, their children will always be in the dark. But it's time to turn the lights on, baby. Partner with schools, businesses, banks, and others to promote financial literacy. We need to be connecting with people that are willing to back us up. If they're not willing to give loans to black people, we shouldn't bank there. If they're not willing to teach our children right, our children should not be there. Y'all, I feel this thing. This is personal because my people, God said, no, this is not the way I meant for y'all to be in. I'm going to say number 5 again for those that didn't write it down because it's vital. Partner with schools, businesses, banks, and others to promote financial literacy. We need people to come and teach black people how to run their business effectively. And black people, can I say this to you? It's time out that we stop being afraid to connect with one another. Because as long as we're scattered, we can't have the power that we need. But when you come in unity and we are standing together, guess what? We can help build one another. That's what you do. You keep building one another. Goal number 6. Pay our reparation. Pay our reparation to African Americans, slave descendants. If every one of us say right now, we have had somebody in our family that had to be whooped, that had to be told what their name was, that had to be mastered by the good old boys. Woo! Pay us like you paid others. Everybody else got paid except us. Why are we allowing this to happen? What are we afraid of? Together we are powerful. Divided we will always fall. Woo! Can I say that again? Prophets, I'm going to say it again because it felt good to me because I'm saying, God, no. I don't know what about you. But my Bible tells me, when you catch the thief stealing, you command him to what? Pay it back 7-fold. So we're saying, no, Satan, no more. No more. No more. He says, goal number 6, pay our reparation to African American slave descendants as you have others. Pay us what we are owed. We have built up and built up and repaired and still been overlooked. Goal number 7, and I don't care if you don't like it, take it up with Yeshua. Make payroll taxes more progressive to stop overtaxing the middle class. Can I say that again? Make payroll taxes more progressive to stop overtaxing the middle class. Why are we carrying the wealthy when they are, you know what, they talk about this welfare mentality, but they are the biggest welfare recipients that you can even imagine. Do you understand that? Y'all, we have been afraid to beat around. We done marched around in Mulberry walking on eggshells. Them eggshells is cracked. Let's do this. It's time out. Goal number 8. And I want you to tell somebody else about that. Keep spreading the word. Recommended economic policy reform. This is a demand in the next 90 days. When they get in office, this is what's on the table. This is why we got to go to Washington. This is why we got to stay in their faces. This is going to happen. We will not take no for an answer. Too long. Whew. Goal number 8. Oh, and I forgot to say, one thing we're asking too is that those that have served their time, they have paid their debt to society, reinstate them, reinstate their benefits, reinstate their voting rights, reinstate them that they're able to get housing and jobs, and then expunge their records. Because if we can allow a convicted felon to run an office as a president, surely we can we better, y'all, listen. Something's wrong with this picture. When we say, oh no, you're not able to vote. And they have made it very difficult for people in Georgia to vote. They're making it difficult. Y'all, how long? Whatever affects the South, it has a matter of time before it starts spreading everywhere. Restore their rights and expunge their records. We ain't talking about violent people that keep going over and over committing crimes, violent crimes. We're talking about those that have served their time, they have done their duty. Do not hold them responsible for the rest of their life. That is not your job. You are not God. You are not Yeshua. You are not the judge. Matter of fact, he's going to judge you. So don't put somebody in a judgment seat you don't want to deal with yourself. Goal number 8. Expand small business loans for African Americans, entrepreneurs, and protect the DEI program. Where y'all said, oh, we going to stop giving y'all loans. We not going to give y'all loans where they've been trying to block them from giving loans. We need to have protection from the DEI program. So we need to expand small business loans for African Americans, entrepreneurs, and protect the DEI program. Tell me if y'all need me to stop and go back to one that you missed, because I don't want you to miss it. Goal number 9. Woo! I wish they would have had this when I went to college. Them loans is not a joke. When you got to pay them back, the government will stop you from getting anything if you don't pay your student loans back. And you can get prosecuted behind this stuff. Come on here. Look, goal number 9. Forgive more student loans and continue the income-based payments. I know when my brother came out of school and he had to pay his, I had to pay. You don't get a long time. You can get 60 days or a couple of days. You can do a referral. But after a while, baby, them loans, the payments got to be like, and if you won't pay it, they sure gonna take it. Forgive more student loans. I don't understand why we are not allowing kids to go to school free anyway. If you want them to better themselves, wouldn't we give them a hands up? Forgive more student loans and continue income-based payments. Number 10, so you should have 10 goals that we are focusing and praying about, and we are demanding. We're not just going to pray. We got to talk about it. Number 10, strengthen and protect workers' rights and safety by campaigning workers' unions. We need worker unions. We need people that stand up for people's rights. There's a lot of people that have just been dismissed off a job because they don't have that support. They don't have that support, so we can just do what we want to do. But when you stand up for your rights, then they got to look at things different. Because without your workers, you heard what they said, without all the immigrants that came here and they working all these foreign lands, how are you going to get your product out? Huh? Now Trump is trying to go back and say, oh, no, we need to bring in more immigration. Oh, I thought you was trying to put up a wall. No. We might need to let the women have their abortion. I thought you said they couldn't have abortion. No. We need to take the guns from the thugs. But you don't want to put a ban on assault weapons. But you keep allowing, because people are buying guns like crazy, but you say, take their guns away. Y'all better. Now is the time that we say we are no longer in denial. I believe that when we stand together, things can begin to shift, and God, you will see the power of God moving. And I have a problem with people say they understand God, but they don't want to be involved. No, God wants us to run this world. He meant for us to dominate it. That the world comes to us for answers. We have allowed Satan to have too many open doors. And it caused an outcry. But this is what I want to tell all of those that believe in the propaganda, the GOP, the MAGA. This is what I want y'all to know. He says in Psalm 33, rejoice in the Lord, O ye righteous, for the praise is comely for the upright. Praise the Lord with harp, sing unto him with parsley, and an instrument of 10 strings. Sing unto him a new song. Play skillfully with a loud noise. Watch this. This is what we got to do, y'all. This is what I need y'all to understand. Now that you got 10 goals that we are set up, now this is what I want you to do.
Mr. Berry, Chapter 18 of the Project 2025 Manifesto is about the Department of Labor.
Oh, give them the order. Make money into my ass. If you read me any nigga hard in fe, Zemutibu hard in fe, and a man on Lora dinche, never much a baba on yen chem, Mere Muzamo cut in fe, Zemutibu hard in fe, Ana mana nora na dinche. Nekwe mche kwa ba onye nelu mabao. Yeah, yeah, bao. Ane yak ne mabao. Bao, nelu mabao. Oba, 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 oba.
I was dancing with him, prophetess. I had to dance with him because, come on in, woman of God. I had to dance with him. Let me say, to God be the glory. Now, we met tonight for a reason, to allow you to hear and educate yourself the more. The more that we educate ourselves, we're no longer walking around with blinders. We can no longer sit back and say, it does not matter. It does not involve me. It involves you, your your grandchildren, your grandchildren to come, your family. It involves everything, your income and everything. So let's just focus on what thus said Lord. Can I play this again? Because I just love him. I just love him. I had to do this with him. Hold up. Okay, might not let me play him while we're here. But let me hear from you, woman of God.
Well, we already know what Project 2025 is really about. But as far as the goals, I really am, I believe it's a wonderful thing to be forceful and be really adamant about putting that not so much the pressure, but putting that responsibility on the officials that are in office. Because no matter who it is, people, because it's enough of, we know how the game, if we pay attention to how the game works, people say what needs to be said until they get in office. And it's like, no, this really needs to happen. You could say what you're going to do, but there needs to be a push,
yes,
for that. And then when you talk about the financial literacy, the goal, one of the goals being the financial literacy. A lot of the things, when I think about the things that we were taught in school, and it was setting us up for the workforce, which there's nothing wrong with being a part of the workforce. When I look at how we as a people are consumers, we are, it's heavy consumers. If you look at it, a lot of people are profiting off of our consumerism, because we can spend. And just imagine if we were pouring that back into our own businesses, our own, like our own businesses and our own communities, and building up our own communities. Just like when you think about like the Black Wall Street and all, they were somewhat self-sufficient because they had their own banks, had their own insurance companies, had their own stores, things like that. And so I think it's critical that, especially students learn financial literacy. Because I really wish it was taught in ours when I was in school, because it would have helped me bypass a whole lot of, not that there's any excuse now, because there's, we have access to a lot of information, but at the same time, it would have helped me bypass a whole bunch of hurdles and obstacles that that I went through. But those goals are good. I think at the same time too, they're a starting point, because once, because I really wish it was taught in ours when I was in school, because it would have helped me bypass a whole lot of once those become an effect, it should go deeper. And just how things have just been played, have played out. When I look at everything, I'm just, in my mind, I'm just picturing everything, and I don't know all of everything. I'm just saying the stuff that I see and just how we've been trained to be consumers and, gotta have this and gotta have that. And there's nothing wrong with having things because everybody is a consumer at some point, but it's just when you look how we got start changing our mindset and our priorities on how to go about and build not just individually but as a community. And whoever, everybody's not going to be a part, obviously, but whoever is going to be a part of it, it will be an awesome thing to see us, really be, and I'm talking about all people, really be, really build and not, be, I don't know, just be a part of a system where, like you said, we're carrying the load, and at the same time, we're making people the money. And so it is that, and I see it now, what you call that, the balance of weight is really unbalanced, and God is a God of justice. He's going to work it out. But I did like those goals. Like I said, when you were talking, it's just like that's a start. That's really a starting point.
Yes.
For us, but it's a good start though, because we need to really hold the people in politics accountable, and even outside of that, just get busy on our own, because we can't always depend on the government. But yet at the same time, if they're saying those things, they do need to be held accountable at the same time.
Yes. I believe that because, like I said, yes, those are starting bullets. And that is our goal for the first 90 days that they are in office. And one thing about it, when you start building, then you can keep building. Keep building. But you must see those things come to pass. There's no ifs and buts about it. We cannot compromise. We have compromised too long, and we have gotten left behind, and we keep getting left behind. But we got to think about the generation that's coming after us, and then after them. Because if we don't set the record, we don't set it straight, guess what happens? They're back here dealing with issues. I said, I thank God, I said to God, I said, Yeshua, I thank God that my parents are not here to witness what is going on, because they would be like, and I would be worried about them trying, if something happened, I got to get to them and get their situation. But I wish that they would have just all took this in consideration and built on what they were building all the time and kept on. You have to put a demand. You know what? I'm like this. Even when I'm going into business or I'm doing something, I'm that type. You're not going to tell me no. I'm that type that I'm going to do it in the spirit of perfection. And I'm saying, no, we got to do it like this, y'all. It has to be done right. Because when we're presenting it to God and we're saying, God, we're ready. We're ready. So now it's just like, now what do we do from here? We don't want to just cross we so used to going and just voting and we call it done. Now we hoping a miracle fall out the sky. The miracle, no. God has given us the ability to stand up And I said, I told my children, I'd rather stand up doing for God. If you're going to why sit here at the gate, prophets? You heard me talk about those 4 men sitting at the gate. They was waiting to die. But why sit here and die? He said, wait, if we're going to die, let's at least go in here and see what we can get from them.
Try it, die trying. Yeah.
At least go out with a bang. Don't allow yourself to be just defeated. And they did not die. The thing they was fearing was waiting for them to come in and possess the land. And that's what God said to me. He said, now Moses' girl is dead. Joshua, this is that Joshua era. That's why you see these young people being radical. That's why I said all we got to do is teach them the more. Those midwives need to come in place. Those fathers need to be in place. Those uncles need to be in place. Those aunts need to be in place. Those godparents, whoever you are. And when you see that the fight is real, you got to, y'all, not only are we fighting naturally, but it's a spiritual warfare between good and evil. Those many legions. But the Messiah was not moved. He said, come on out. They knew they had to go. We got to let Satan know you got to go. We're not playing with you. Y'all not going to sit down and entertain a demon. That's one thing I'm not going to do. You want to be delivered or you want to keep your demon? Because that is what God is saying. And we have allowed too many times to pass us by and we're getting left out. No more. No more. We have to get radical. And I thank God for allowing me to always be radical. I will not stop being radical. Because I know without a shadow of doubt, if you don't be afraid, you will get something done. They always say a closed mouth never gets fed. Nobody's coming to your rescue if you're not speaking out. He said, cry loud and spare not. I am not sparing their feelings. They have not spared yours. What are we doing? And God is saying, get yourself up. Get in place. Find who you are. You used to have that fight. When you first came in, you was like, no. Get that fight back. Get that joy back. Get it back. Get that happiness, that willingness. He didn't have to beat you across the head to get up out of the bed at 6 o'clock. Come on, pray, talk to me. I'm sleepy. Now I'm sleepy, Lord. We all have done it. But now he said, wait a minute. I got some work for you to do. And I need leaders that are not afraid. I'm talking about leaders that are not afraid. I'm not talking about that you can be bought off. I'm not talking about you being self-righteous, religious. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that will stand up for doing the will of God. We have to be able to stand in the gap for the people. And God He's calling us to that greater place, that higher height, that deeper depth. Are we willing to go? As I climb that trail, going higher and higher up in those mountains, I'm like, yes, what are you doing? Let's do this. Let's do it. Because when you realize, once you go high, you ain't willing to come down. And I heard Prophetess Lexi say, no more lower bars. I said, go ahead. No more lonely, dark places, cold. No more. So we thank God for tonight. We thank Him how He is moving. Y'all, I'm telling you, God is speaking to the righteous. He's speaking to the remnant. Count it not strange that you are still here on this earth. He set you in this earth for a time as this. He said, I'm getting ready to deal with the shattered pieces, daughter. I'm getting ready to rebuild the shattered pieces. And one thing about it, every shattered piece does not get away from him. Isn't that something? I've had broken stuff and I can't find certain pieces. And I'll be like, well, I'm missing this part, I'm missing that part. But not one part gets away from our shattered lives. We might have been shattered, but we didn't die. Woo, good God. Paul said, you bit me, but I didn't die. Woo, my God. And then this is what we got to get up and we got to realize we still got life in us.
Yes.
There's still life all over this world. You still got some things and adventures you got to see.
Yes.
And we are not going to allow Satan to tell us and dictate to us how we going to serve God. We are like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I'm not bowing down to Nebuchadnezzar God. That's not going to happen. That will never happen. Satan always, he asked me, he said, why won't you serve me? Because I don't love you. I love Yeshua. And as long as we keep compromising, we will never see the real glory of God in your life. But how many times I keep saying, y'all, it's no longer time to keep existing. It's time to live. It's time to live. Live. Whom the sun sets free is free indeed. All of that is bondage, y'all. That's not living. That's speaking death to us. The devil is a foolish liar. Now you gotta take that personal. Oh, wait, Satan, I take that personal. That's not going to happen. And the only way it won't happen is we stand up with our voice. Let your voice be heard. You might say, well, I don't know how to speak. I don't know how to say. Let your voice be heard. Don't be afraid to put a demand on it. Lord, we thank God for tonight. We thank God for all that has been said and done. Y'all, I thank him. And I thank him for what he's doing. I'm telling you, and I thank God that they have opened this Kendra Johnson, Vidasa. He stayed in Vidasa, Georgia, where the young man came up dead in the mat. Well, now more information is coming out. And I thank God for my brothers went there in 600 deep and marched the streets. And we demand justice. See, that's what we're talking about. That we're saying, we're not doing all this talking no more. We have done enough talking, y'all. It's time for action. And we have to put, like they used to say, put your money where your mouth is. Well, put your mouth where the word of God is speaking. And allow God to speak through you and for you and to you. Because he's dealing with those shattered pieces of our lives. So it's now time. Rise up and stand up. Stand firm on what you believe. Stand firm on what God promised you. I pray that all enjoyed tonight. If you didn't, please share with somebody. Keep sharing it. Let them know, y'all, we are serious about what we're doing. We're not just out here wasting time. We're not just gathering together. But we're gathering with a purpose and a plan. So we thank God for tonight. Our information is right there. I want to thank God. Watch this video as we go out. I'm going to see if I can get my boy back because I had to dance with him. I've been dancing with him since last night. I said, boy, if you don't do that dance, I'm trying to tell you, that's a victory dance. He was like, oh my God. That's giving me victory. That's giving me in like another round. Like, oh, I can do this. We can do this. So we thank God for everything that has been said and done. Watch this. Thank you, prophets.
This idea that God created us to be priest and prophet and provider and protector.
Recently, the Israelites United in Christ, the Black Hebrew Israelite group, marched through Chicago with a show of force in their attempts to bring stability, in their attempts to bring back a male presence, a strong male presence into the city of Chicago.
A lot of hatred, murder, and on O Block. Sister learn to get a block because she recognized the prophets of God.
Mr. Berry, Chapter 18 of the Project 2025.
That won't let me play it. But thank God for tonight. Y'all, did y'all see how deep them young men were? I love it that they're saying we won't turn back. I left them streets and I open up my eyes and I see the reality. It's time to wake up. Y'all, it is time that we wake up. We love you. God bless you. Good night.
Recording stopped.